Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Thursday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you, as always, for joining me. First of all, apologies that this is going out a little bit later than usual. Not too much later, to be fair, but a bit later than usual. I have been recording this morning the first of a new series I'm going to be launching very, very soon. It's called My Arsenal Story, and it's going to be a series of each episode is going to be an interview, an in-depth interview with someone who has been connected with the club in some way. So whether it be a former player, whether it be a former coach, whether it be an employee, so a former scout or an executive or a fan, even. It's going to be a series of interviews. And each episode is going to be an in-depth interview with a certain figure who's connected with Arsenal. And it's going to be about his Arsenal story, his time at the club, how it came about, what he did while he was there, all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I was recording the first one this morning. I've literally just finished it. I'll probably be putting it out early next week, I imagine. If you're an Inside Arsenal member on Patreon, you will get first look at that, but I will be putting it out on here as well. So don't worry if you're not, you will get it. Obviously, it won't be ad-free, but if you are an Inside Arsenal member on Patreon, and you'll get ad-free versions of that, and you'll get the first look at it as well. And you can sign up to become an Inside Arsenal member down below in the description. The link is there. Just follow it and come over and join the growing community there. So yeah, that's coming out early next week, but that's why this show is a little bit later than usual, because I had to get that recording done. And I do think it's a really good interview as well. So looking forward to you guys getting to see it. Right, plenty still to discuss today. We're going to talk Viktor Gyokeres as a massive row explodes over that potential transfer this summer, whether it be to Arsenal or anyone else. It is all exploded in fairly spectacular style over in Portugal. So we're going to talk about that, look at what's been said. We're going to talk about other sort of transfer bits and pieces that are doing the rounds. Jorrel Hato, that long-standing interest Arsenal have in him. Fabrizio Romano talking yesterday, saying that Arsenal have called and had another sort of discussion over him. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about strong interest coming from Italy and a couple of Arsenal players as well. We've got other bits and pieces to get stuck into. So let's start with Viktor Gyokeres, shall we? And as I said, if you haven't seen these quotes or didn't see the press conference yesterday, then it's been pretty spectacular and is a massive, massive story over in Portugal. Now, the sort of backdrop to this all is, of course, that Gyokeres and Gyokeres' representatives have firmly believed for a long, long time that there's been a gentleman's agreement with Sporting that at the end of the season, he would be able to go not for his 100 million euros release clause, but for around 60 million euros. They believe that was said to them verbally at the end of last season, and that is what they've been working towards all of this season, why he was happy to stay, because they thought Sporting would let him go for around 60 million. Now, Sporting are absolutely now saying that is not the case, that we saw reports yesterday that Gyokeres was thinking about going on strike, wouldn't be going back for the start of pre-season training, because he and his people believe Sporting have backtracked on the agreement that they had. Now, yesterday, the Sporting president, Frederico Varandas, has been speaking and given his view on events. And this is what he's had to say on that. He said, it was agreed that Sporting would not demand the release clause at the end of the following season because he was going to be 27. We knew Victor's dream, of course, was to go for a club where he could fight for the Champions League. And we have common sense. We guaranteed that we would not demand 100 million. In that meeting, the agent wanted to anchor the departure to a value. He spoke of 60 million, 70 million. And I said, there's no point in setting a value because I don't know what will happen in a year if he gets injured or if he has a disappointing season. There is no point in setting a value. I don't know if it will be 40, 60 or 80. What I guarantee is that it will not be 100. From then on, I never spoke to the agent again. I never spoke to the player about departures and values. 10 months have passed, and I now see the agent in the press spouting information here and there, but Sporting has common sense. It keeps its word. One thing you should already know is me. Threats, blackmail and insults don't work on me. I can guarantee that Victor will not leave for 60 plus 10 because I never promised him that. This game that the agent is playing only makes the situation worse. Have there been offers of 60 million? To this day, Sporting has not had an offer for Victor, neither today nor last season. So, all going nice and smoothly when it comes to Viktor Gyokeres and his potential exit from Sporting. Now, there are reports today from the Portuguese media that Arsenal have had a meeting with Gyokeres yesterday, his representatives yesterday, and are, quote, ready to bid for him. I'm a bit skeptical on that. I haven't heard it myself. I'm always a bit skeptical with some of the stories that seem to emerge from Portugal on that bond, but we'll wait to see. Maybe they're better sourced than we are over here in England. But at the moment, it seems to be certainly being reported over there that Arsenal have held a meeting. They had it yesterday with Gyokeres and his agents, and they are now ready to make a bid. We'll see if that materialises. I have a feeling it might not, but we'll wait and see on that. I'll be happy to be proved wrong. But yeah, I said it yesterday, gentlemen's agreements, these whole things, they never seem to work in football. It always just ends up being a bit of a disaster. And this just feels like sort of accident waiting to happen when it came to Gyokeres. Interest in the whole sort of going on strike thing. Obviously, we don't know if that's actually genuine threat or not at this stage, but would how would that play out with other coaches and managers who are potentially interested in signing him if that is really the sort of stance that he or his people are willing to take to try and force him out of a club? Will that impress potential suitors? I'm not sure, but certainly feels like it's a very, very messy situation at the moment in Portugal with Viktor Gyokeres. One to certainly keep an eye on over the next few days. Jorrel Hato, as I said at the start of this show, again being linked with Arsenal by Fabrizio Romano yesterday, saying that Arsenal and Chelsea have both called Ajax in the last week to speak about Jorrel Hato and find out exactly what is going on with him this summer and potentially what it would cost to get him out of Ajax. Now, we know that Jorrel Hato is a player that Arsenal have been interested in for a long, long time. The interest dates back more than 12 months that Arsenal have been keeping an eye on him. Obviously, they signed during Timber from Ajax a couple of years ago. And Hato has been a player of strong interest. He's ranked very highly up the list in terms of Arsenal's recruitment team. They're very impressed by what he could bring. Very young, talented player. I had a question on him. I don't think I pulled it up on here, but I had a question on him saying, why on earth are we going for another defender? Why are we interested in another defender? Well, I think part of that is probably down to Jakub, Kiwior and Oleksandr Zinchenko as well. When you look at the front page, I've got it here of the Gazzetta dello Sport today. They go very, very big. You've got pictures of Kivior and Zinchenko, high up on that front page, and that Milan are pushing for both players. And so, if you're losing Kivior, maybe not so much Zinchenko, but if Zinchenko and Kivior go in the same summer, I think that absolutely explains why Arsenal are potentially looking at another defensive option. We've already seen Dean Howson, of course, was interested. Mark Gahey has been suggested as a possible target as well in recent days. And Jorrel Hato, Hato just feels, I know that Arsenal want Jorrel Hato. Or I know that Arsenal are interested in Jorrel Hato, and he was an attractive proposition. So seeing what Fabrizio said yesterday doesn't surprise me at all, really, because they've put a lot of work into Jorrel Hato and analysing him, but trying to work out if he could make a similar step that Jurien Timber did. And yeah, I think a lot of it plays into the Zinchenko and Kivior stuff. Kivior, I've said before, I think if he turned around and said, I want to stay, I think that ideally probably solves a bit of a problem for Arsenal, but it wouldn't surprise me. Now the internationals are over, you kind of look at it and think, is his value ever going to be higher at Arsenal than it is right now? I don't think it will, because next season, Gabriel, Saliba, if they stay fit, are going to play, and he will go back to getting bits and pieces, a few minutes here and there, and his value is going to drop again. Right now, he's had a very good end to the season. He's gone away with Poland. He scored it the other day. He was man of the match in that game as well. So following on from his good club form, his value is just never really going to be higher. So a smart club, I suppose, if you're going to sell a player, you want to sell him when his value is at his highest. And I think that is the case for Kivior. So if Milan or anyone from Italy do come in, and we know Napoli and Juventus have been watching him in the past, one of those do come in, then you've got a decision to make. And I think that's when Jorrel Hato would come into the conclusion for that. Elsewhere, Nico Williams being linked with Bayern Munich. Reports from Germany saying that Williams is interested in a move to Bayern. We know they're looking at a left winger. It is one of their top priorities this summer. Nico Williams, of course, a player that Arsenal have been following for an awful long time. Mikel Arteta, a big fan of Nico Williams. Be interesting to see. The reports from Germany seem to suggest that he would be willing to move to Germany and leave Spain. Massive wages at Bayern. I'm not sure Arsenal compete with Bayern's wages, I have to say. So if it comes into a bidding war, we know that wages are a big sort of sticking point when it comes to Nico Williams leaving Bilbao and coming to Arsenal or anyone in the Premier League. And I know the Premier League has an awful lot of money, but Bayern do pay very, very well. And I'd wonder if that might swing things, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But that's certainly the latest when it comes to Nico Williams, is that Bayern are pushing for a potential deal for him. So let me know your thoughts on all of the sort of transfer bits and pieces, whether it be Zinchenko, Kivior. Do you think the time is right to sell them? What do you think of Jorrel Hato? What do you think of Nico Williams, Viktor Gyokeres, anything like that? Come down into the comments. Give me your thoughts on what's going on at the moment with Arsenal and the transfer window. Right, I'm going to get on some of your questions and comments in a minute, but I just wanted to flag your attention to this if you haven't seen it yet. Now, look, Santi Cazorla is... I was talking the other day, I think it was on here, and I was talking about the best player of the Emirates era, and I think it's probably Alexis Sanchez for... Robin Van Persie maybe for that season when he was unbelievable, but Sanchez was just unbelievable. But my favourite player of the Emirates era, without a shadow of a doubt, it's not even close for me, is Santi Cazorla. It's just a magician, just an amazing footballer who just gives so much joy. Plays football in the right way, right foot, left foot, whatever. It's just an absolute magician. It's such a crying shame what happened to Cazorla. I'm still utterly convinced we would have won the title in 2016 had he not got injured. But to see what he's doing in the latter stage of his career after coming back from that injury where he was so close to retiring, it was horrendous what he went through for a 2-year period, Santi Cazorla. So much so, he almost lost his ankle. He could have lost his ankle. To see him now at 40 years old, if you haven't seen it, yesterday, he's back at his boyhood club, of course, Oviedo. He's barely being paid because he doesn't want to be paid. He just wants to play and give something back to Oviedo. Then yesterday, they're in the second division playoff to try and get up to La Liga in the semi-final yesterday. 1-0 down on the night, so it was level on aggregate. Cazorla comes on at half-time within a few minutes with his wrong foot, if Santi Cazorla does have a wrong foot, left foot, free kick, bang, goal, 1-1, and that's how it finished. And Santi Cazorla's goal sends Oviedo, his boyhood club, into the playoff final and just one game away from going to La Liga. It's just a remarkable story. And you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the pictures now. You'll go and find the video of the goal and the celebrations afterwards. It just couldn't happen to a nicer guy. The stuff that he's been through, to still be playing now as a 40-year-old, to be doing it the way he's doing it for his boyhood club. It's just a brilliant, brilliant story. It's very rare now in football. It's all so intense. It's all so messy, and it's very rare you get these sort of stories that just make you really smile. And this is absolutely one of them. It's just impossible to watch that goal, to watch the celebrations of him with the fans afterwards at 40 years old, doing what he's doing now and potentially firing his boyhood team back to the top flight in Spanish football. It's just brilliant. I'm so happy for him. So yeah, congratulations, Santi. 1 game to go. Good luck in the final. Fabio Vieira has been speaking. He's heading off to the Club World Cup with Porto. That was agreed as part of the loan deal that Arsenal had with Porto, that he could go to the Club World Cup at the end of the season. He's been speaking about that. He said, I knew from the beginning that I would play in the Club World Cup with Porto. It's another opportunity for me and the team and my teammates, of course. We want to show what Porto and the country are all about because we'll be representing it. We want to go as far as possible because every competition we enter is about winning. This one will be no exception. We see the competition as an opportunity for us all to leave a good impression. He was then asked kind of about what happens now, at the end of this, and going back to Arsenal, all that sort of stuff. He didn't really want to talk about it. He just said, I want to end this season well and recover from those 2 difficult years of my career at Arsenal where I had a lot of injuries. I came here to regain that confidence and to get playing time. This Club World Cup is an opportunity to end the season well. Now, of course, there's no clause in the contract that Arsenal agreed, the loan agreement Arsenal agreed with Porto. There is no clause to turn that move permanent. So it would have to be fresh negotiations if Porto are going to take him back, whether it be on another loan, whether it be permanent. You kind of suggest from Arsenal's point of view, they'll very much want to get a permanent deal done for Fabio this summer. I'd be very surprised. I mean, if he goes deep in the Club World Cup competition, even if he goes back for Arsenal, he's probably going to miss the start of pre-season because of that. And I don't see him playing a major role. I really don't. I just feel like this is the summer that Arsenal will try and cut their losses on Fabio. It hasn't worked, and try and make a deal done. The fact that they weren't ready to completely wash their hands with him last summer, they didn't agree to some sort of obligation in the contract, suggested they wanted to have another look at him. But I would imagine the loan he's had with Porto, where it hasn't been that great, had some good moments, but not been absolutely, not been great, really, I would suggest that this is the summer they're going to try and probably let him go. But, good, strong Club World Cup, maybe that'll sort of prompt Porto into taking him back and Arsenal getting some money. They're certainly not going to get all their money back on Fabio. I think that's an absolute given, but they might be able to at least get some of it back. Right, moving on to some of your questions and comments now before we wrap this one up. Here's one from NSW. He says, hey, Charles, if Arsenal can only make one marquee sign-in this summer, would you rather it be a clinical striker like Sesko or a left eight like Zubimendi to cover Xhaka's former role? Which area do you think actually gets us closer to winning the Prem in the nearest future? Goals or midfield control? Goals. Absolutely. Arsenal already have midfield control. Zubimendi's not going to be left eight. Anyway, he's going to be coming in as a number 6. There's no way Zubimendi's going to be left eight. I'd be very surprised. He might play there in a few games, like we saw Jorginho play there in a few games, but largely he's going to play as a 6. Declan Rice will be the left eight next season. But Arsenal already have a lot of midfield control. We see that. They dominate so many games. Goals is what Arsenal need now to get themselves over the line. There's no doubt about it. You look at the difference in how many goals Arsenal scored compared to Liverpool last season. That's where the title was won and lost. No doubt about it. Liverpool just carried more of a goal threat from all areas, and that got them over the line because the games weren't always really, really tight like most of the Arsenal games were. So I would be, marquee signing this summer, absolutely prioritising a striker and someone who's going to just add a few more goals to this squad. Marco says, hi, Charles. I have a question about players that can play multiple positions. Says, I don't see us bringing in 2 if Partey leaves. Could you see MLS playing as either a holding midfielder or an 8? Also, how much do you think these players can play in their secondary positions next season? Nwaneri, Martinelli, false 9, Marino, 9 or a 6, Timber left back and Havertz. I think we'll see a lot of that in terms of players playing in different positions. I think Havertz we're going to see play loads of positions. I don't really see Timber playing too much at left back, I have to say. I think they'll keep him at right back. He can do that job well because he's such a good player. But I think, I'd be surprised if we see much of that. I do think we'll see Marino still as an option at 9 at times. Obviously, we're probably hopefully not going to need him as much if you get a new striker in and Havertz stays fit. That will, you're not going to see him that much. But he's proven he can be he can be very good there. So I think we will see him play there. So yeah, I think we'll see players switch around. I'm not sure about Nwaneri as a false 9. I'm not sure about Martinelli as a false 9. I know Mikel's bigged up Nwaneri playing there at times, but I'd be surprised if we see that too much. And MLS is an interesting one. Lots of people seem to think we're going to see MLS at some point transition to a midfield role. I'm not so sure, I have to say. Maybe at some point further down the line, but I'm not sure next season. I still think the majority that we will see, majority of the time we see MLS playing next season, it'll be at left back. I know he's a midfielder or was a midfielder. I know he can play there. He's good enough to play there, but I struggle to see that happening next season. I just still think he offers so much in that left side at left back. He's exactly what Arteta likes in a left back. So I just don't really see him playing in a midfield role. I really don't. Even if Partey goes, I think they sign another midfielder. I know you say that you don't see it happening, but I think if Partey goes, I think they will sign another midfielder. I think they kind of have to. I don't think you can lose Jorginho and Partey in the same summer and only sign Zubimendi. I think you have to go and protect yourselves a little bit more than that. Nick has got in touch about Sphere Naipan. Says City are signing Sphere Naipan, the highly recruited Norwegian, who we were very confident of signing in January. This is frustrating. Several times a year, a highly publicised wonder kid emerges, catches the eyes of all the European clubs, and Arsenal always one of the clubs said to be interested in him, and yet we always lose out. Why? When was the last time we actually beat a City or a Bayern or a Madrid level club to one of these guys this summer? We're told that Per Mertesacker will be given extra resources to bring in better academy players. Will this help the situation, or are those resources meant to attract even younger kids, say at 14 level? It's an interesting one. Yeah, Naipan heading to Manchester City, by all accounts. It'll be interesting to see if he stays at City or if he heads over to Girona for a season or two where he's going to go on loan. I think the fairly simple answer to this question is money, Nick. I just think these players are going to be getting offered a hell of a lot more now than Arsenal can offer. I just think City, Chelsea, those clubs will just offer more than Arsenal do. And I hate to be too simplistic about it when it comes to football, but I just think money more than ever, and it always has done, but even more than ever now, money talks in these situations. And what these players at these ages are being offered is just unbelievable. I go back to Ethan Nwaneri when Arsenal thought he had gone before he signed his new contract. And they just couldn't compete with what was being offered by other English clubs, by the Chelseas and Manchester City to him. It was just an absolutely massive wage for such an untried 16-year-old kid. But they managed to convince him, not so much through money, but through talk and Arteta and everyone else, to stay. But for players like Naipan, potentially, I just think the money offer is going to be greater elsewhere. And that ultimately, more often than not, has a final say on those decisions. Before we go, here's some more now. Talking about the left wing situation. Pluto from Zimbabwe has got in touch. Thank you very much for that. You're saying, regarding Rodrigo speculation, I also think we need an upgrade on the left wing. But if we sign Sesko, all of a sudden those Martinelli crosses become a lot more dangerous, and Jesus' best position is probably out wide. We are not desperate for a left winger, and we should act like it in negotiations to get the best deal. Interesting one. Look, Martinelli's. This is not going to be the end of Martinelli at Arsenal. I watched the Brazil game the other day. Martinelli was good over on the left-hand side for them. Started the game, played the full 90 minutes. So you're talking about fully fledged Brazilian international here in Martinelli. Whoever comes in is going to have to go some to perform better than Martinelli numbers-wise. It's not a given. You look at the numbers of a lot of these players that Arsenal have been linked with, and they're no better than Gabriel Martinelli's. I think there is a case of shiny new toy sort of syndrome with a lot of them. And that's not me saying I don't think Arsenal can improve on the left-hand side. I think they can. But whoever does come in is going to have to really play well very, very quickly to be able to match what Martinelli has produced over the time. I just think Martinelli gets an awful lot of unfair criticism. Noah says Matoma over Rodrigo. Simple one from Noah. And then Navid says, fully disagree with the waiting late for Rodrigo. We are signing a young 9 on whom we should not put all the pressure. And the way to relieve that pressure is bringing him a left winger who can take the goal scoring burden. Sane is left Bayern, so they are going to need a left winger. Their options are going to be the same as ours. Leao, Williams, Rodrigo. Now we have to compete. If we wait till the end of July and Rodrigo decides to stay, we'll be in a terrible position. No one really knows if William wants to move, so we cannot be sure of him, and Leao becomes then the only option. Price goes up and chances are we will not get our player. Yeah, interesting one from Navid there about not being able to wait late on for Rodrigo. And I think if Arsenal are going to have any chance of Rodrigo happening, that will be late on in the window. By then, are you taking a risk of waiting too long, that not happening? And in that time, you've lost other key targets. We've already talked about Bayern Munich coming in for Nico Williams potentially. So it's an interesting one from Navid. Can absolutely understand his point there. So everyone, thank you for joining me. Thank you for everyone who sent in comments. Appreciate them as always. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. And remember, keep an eye peeled next week at some point for that new My Arsenal Story episode 1 dropping very, very soon. Take it easy, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.